I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My voice echoed through the lobby, the sound bouncing off the newly renovated walls, each polished surface reflecting my disbelief. Everything I had poured into this place, the late nights, the painstaking details, the endless decisions, had led to this moment. And now, my own parents were standing there, acting like it didn't even matter. How could you be so blind? I thought. But all that came out was, "What do you mean? Ryan will be CEO?" I watched as their dismissive glances and calm, almost rehearsed words struck me harder than any argument. My mom barely looked up from her phone. The same dismissive wave she always used when she thought I was being dramatic. It was like she didn't even have to take me seriously anymore. "Sweetheart, it's not that you're not capable," she said, her voice too soft, like she was explaining something to a child. "But Ryan, he has the natural leadership skills we need." I could feel my pulse quicken, the blood rushing to my ears. I wasn't hearing this. How could she say that after everything I had done? I'd given up a promising career in Chicago to save this hotel, the family business. I had sold my condo, wiped out my savings, and moved back to this town that I had long since outgrown. All because they begged me to help them. And now, they were giving my brother, who had never held a job for more than a year, the keys to the kingdom? The one place I'd worked so hard to rebuild? Ryan strolled into the lobby just then, his hands lazily tucked into his pockets. That all too familiar smug smile plastered across his face. He always had that look. Ever since we were kids. Like he knew something no one else did. Like the world was his playground. And I was just a player in his game. "Hey, sis." He greeted me, his voice dripping with a mix of condescension and casual detachment. "Don't take it personally. Someone needs to handle the day-to-day stuff while I focus on the bigger picture." I had to bite my tongue to stop from screaming. The bigger picture. What the hell did that even mean? While I had been here, slaving away at the details, fixing systems, modernizing the decor, and making sure every corner of this place was perfect, he had been off in Denver, doing God knows what. Maybe networking was his excuse. But all I saw was an endless stream of parties and vague suggestions thrown around during family dinners. He was too busy with his big ideas to understand the reality of running this hotel. My name is Sophia Parker, and at 45, I never imagined I'd find myself fighting for recognition in my own family's business. As I stood there, struggling to hold back the tears of frustration, it became painfully clear to me, my entire life was a series of compromises, sacrifices, and invisible victories. I had spent years building my career, making my mark in Chicago's competitive hotel industry. I'd worked my way up from front desk manager to regional director in a major chain. Every promotion was met with a polite, "Well done, sweetie," followed by the inevitable question, "When are you coming home?" As if nothing I achieved, no matter how big, was ever enough. It wasn't until the hotel was on the brink of bankruptcy that I understood. They didn't see me. They never saw me. They saw a daughter who could be relied upon to clean up the mess. But not the one who had the experience, the skill, and the vision to fix it. I left everything behind in Chicago without a second thought. The minute my dad's voice cracked on the phone, my entire world shifted. He was in tears, his words rushed, barely hanging together. "We're weeks away from bankruptcy," he had said, his voice breaking with the weight of everything he'd tried to keep together for so long. There wasn't a moment of hesitation. I didn't think about my career, my condo, or the life I had built in the city. I thought about my family, about the place that had been a part of me for as long as I could remember. And so, I sold everything, my home, my future, the career I had worked so hard for, and came back to Colorado. The Mountain Pine Lodge had been in our family since the 70s. I grew up in these halls, watching my parents juggle the ins and outs of the hotel business. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. While other kids played with toys, I was managing check-ins, helping with maintenance, and absorbing the rhythm of the hospitality world. The business was a part of me, and I loved every minute of it. But Ryan? He was different, 3 years younger than me. And from the start, he showed no interest in what our family had built. While I was studying hospitality management, working tirelessly to make my way up in the industry. He was bouncing between majors, first architecture, then business, before dropping out altogether. He didn't know what he wanted, but my parents always reassured me that he would find his path. Meanwhile, I worked in Chicago, building my career from the ground up. I had pride in the work I did, but I also had the feeling that it would never be enough. It was always the same with them. That's great, dear, but when are you coming home? I remember the days spent dealing with the nitty-gritty of hotel management, sifting through endless spreadsheets, negotiating contracts with suppliers, and coordinating with staff to ensure everything ran smoothly. But no matter how much I achieved, it was always brushed aside. When my dad called for help, it was no longer about being appreciated or recognized, it was about saving what we all loved. The hotel was struggling, and I knew exactly what needed to be done. It wasn't just a financial rescue, it was a complete overhaul. The Mountain Pine Lodge was stuck in the past, buried under years of neglect. The furniture, the decor, it was all outdated, lifeless, and worse, it had no online presence, no marketing strategy. The reviews were brutal. I spent hours poring over numbers, finding suppliers willing to work with us, and reaching out to industry connections to get us featured in magazines. I revamped the reservation system, hired consultants, and trained staff. I worked until my body ached, waking up each day thinking, this is the day we turn things around. It wasn't just about upgrading the furniture or choosing better linens. It was about the little things, the customer experience, the way guests felt when they walked in the door, the art on the walls, the scent in the lobby, the quality of the breakfast. Every detail had to be perfect. And when I saw our first positive reviews roll in, when our bookings started climbing, I thought it was all worth it. The hotel was starting to shine again. And for the first time in years, we were turning a profit. But there was one thing I didn't expect. Ryan wasn't there. While I spent months pouring every ounce of my energy into saving the hotel, Ryan was off doing, who knew what. Sure, he'd show up for family dinners, spouting off vague suggestions like, we should probably update the decor, and maybe we need a fresh approach. But that was about it. It was as if his input, when he decided to offer it, was treated like gospel. Meanwhile, my every decision, every step forward, was questioned. They kept telling me how wonderful his vision was. But never once did they consider how hard I had worked to make the hotel what it was now. I had been doing everything. I'd taken charge of every little thing. My connection with the suppliers, my new approach to marketing, my new ideas for guest experiences. But somehow, it was always Ryan who got the praise. And that's what hurt the most. As much as I'd tried to convince myself it would all be worth it when the results showed. When the hotel was saved, and everything was in the black again, I had no idea how wrong I was about everything. Before I share what happened next, the moment that left an entire room of journalists in stunned silence, I want to connect with you. My amazing viewers, where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button, because this story is just getting started. The tension in the air was palpable the moment Tom walked into the lobby. He didn't even bother to acknowledge me properly, just strolled in with his hands in his pockets and that same smug smile plastered across his face. I could already feel the familiar knot tighten in my stomach. I had worked tirelessly, sacrificed so much, to turn this hotel around, and there he was, acting like the place had magically improved on its own. His presence was like a shadow, looming over everything I'd achieved, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he thought everything I had done was beneath him. Hey, sis. Tom greeted me, his tone casual, almost mocking. Don't take it personally, but someone has to manage the day-to-day stuff while I focus on the bigger picture. Right? I could feel my patience beginning to unravel. The bigger picture. The words echoed in my head like a slap to the face. Did he really think that managing a hotel was all about making vague decisions and leaving the details to someone else? That's not how this worked. Not in my world. It was the details, the painstaking, relentless attention to every little thing, that made a business successful. But Tom? He didn't care about the systems, the staff, or the guests. He was too busy believing that his vision would somehow fix everything. I had spent months rebuilding from the ground up. Every piece of furniture in the lobby was carefully chosen. Every detail meticulously planned. The guest experience was at the forefront of everything I did. And here he was, swooping in, assuming he could simply decide what needed to be done while I took care of the small stuff. What did he even know about running a hotel? He'd never stuck around long enough to learn. Meanwhile, I was the one on the ground every single day, making sure everything ran smoothly, dealing with the people, the suppliers, and the constant fire drills that came with running a business. But it wasn't just his arrogance that set me off. It was the way my parents stood by him, nodding in agreement like he was some sort of visionary. They'd barely paid attention to me, never really understood the hard work I'd put in. But Tom? He could waltz in, throw out a few ideas, and they treated him like the answer to all their prayers. A perfect example? Just last week, Tom decided, without consulting anyone, that we should cut the continental breakfast service to save costs. Save costs? It was one of our top-rated amenities. The guests raved about it. I had the data to prove it. I tried to show him the numbers, the guest satisfaction surveys, but he just laughed. Numbers aren't everything, sis, he said, brushing me off like it was some trivial detail. How could he be so oblivious? But it didn't stop there. The real breaking point came when I walked into the hotel this morning and found out that Maria, our head of housekeeping, had been fired. Maria had been with us for over 15 years. She knew this place better than anyone, and she was the backbone of our staff. Yet Tom decided her scheduling wasn't flexible enough for his new system. The new system he dreamed up without even bothering to understand the real needs of the hotel. I was furious. Maria was the heart of our operation. Without her, we would have been in chaos. So, I stepped in. I stopped Tom before he could do more damage. I saved Maria's job, but the damage to the morale was already done. The look of humiliation on Maria's face when she realized her loyalty meant nothing to Tom broke my heart. I had to reassure her, to apologize on Tom's behalf. But I knew the trust between us had been shaken. I tried talking to Mom and Dad, thinking maybe they'd see the error in Tom's decision. I showed them spreadsheets, financial projections, guest reviews praising the improvements we'd made. I even brought in examples of the systems I'd put in place to ensure the hotel kept running smoothly. But their response? Dad barely looked up from his coffee, and Mom patted my hand like she was comforting a child. Sweetheart, you have to give Tom time to figure things out. He has such wonderful ideas, she said, as if his ideas were more valuable than the countless hours I had spent bringing those ideas to life. It was a punch in the gut. It was like none of my sacrifices mattered. Everything I had done, all the progress I'd made, was being dismissed in favor of his bigger picture. I had given everything for this hotel, but they could never see it. They never saw me. I was driving home, my mind a whirlwind of frustration, when something caught my eye. A for sale sign stood proudly on the corner lot near Riverside Lodge. I slammed on the brakes, the tires squealing against the asphalt as my heart skipped a beat. There it was, the one thing that had been missing from my life for so long, an opportunity. A place that I could build from scratch, free from the constraints of my family's expectations and the stifling presence of Tom. I parked the car, staring at the sign, letting the weight of the moment settle in. The Riverside Lodge had always been a competitor, a distant rival for years. But now, it was a rundown mess. Neglected and falling apart. It needed work, tons of it, but I saw something in it. Something I hadn't seen in years. Potential, a chance to do things my way. A place where my ideas could breathe, without anyone telling me to give Tom time, or that his vision was better than mine. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, the weight of the decision pressing on me. This wasn't just about fixing up a hotel, it was about reclaiming my life. My identity. I was done being the background player. I wasn't going to be the one who fixed the mess anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who always cleaned up after Tom's mistakes. Who worked in the shadows, hoping for recognition that never came. I had given up enough for them. I pulled out my phone and called my realtor. The words came out almost without thinking. a sense of urgency pushing me forward. "I want to buy Riverside Lodge," I said, my voice steady, but underneath it was something else. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement. Freedom. Within an hour, I had scheduled a viewing for the next morning. I didn't waste time. There was no going back now. This was my moment. The drive home felt different. My mind raced with possibilities. The ideas flooding in faster than I could keep up. I could already picture the renovations. The new design. The staff I'd hire. People who believed in quality. In service. In the guest experience. I'd build something from the ground up. Something that didn't rely on anyone else's approval. And the best part? No one could take that away from me. I pulled into my driveway and took a deep breath. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a spark of energy. The weight of my family's expectations. The burden of living up to their standards. It all started to lift. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was going to thrive. As I stood there, staring at the front door of my house, I knew something had changed. I wasn't waiting for my parents' approval anymore. I wasn't waiting for Tom to figure things out. I was taking control. I was going to build something that was completely mine. The next few months were a blur of activity. Each day blurring into the next as I poured everything I had into transforming Riverside Lodge into the summit. The place had been forgotten by so many, left to decay in the shadows of Mountain Pine Lodge. But I knew its potential. Every inch of the property was a blank canvas, waiting for my vision to come to life. I worked tirelessly, assembling a team of contractors, designers, and staff who shared my passion and dedication to excellence. There was no room for mediocrity in my new world. I remember walking through the empty halls, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. Every decision I made felt monumental. The old walls, once cracked and peeling, were now being transformed into something fresh and modern. I designed the lobby myself. Every piece of furniture, every piece of artwork, every light fixture had a purpose. I wanted guests to feel welcomed, pampered, and at home the moment they stepped through the door. It was a reflection of me, my values, my commitment to quality, my refusal to accept anything less than perfection. But it wasn't just the design that mattered, it was the experience. I wanted the summit to be more than just a place to sleep. I wanted it to be a destination. I sourced local materials, brought in renowned chefs, and created packages that gave guests the full mountain experience. We offered guided hikes, outdoor excursions, and luxurious spa treatments. The summit wasn't just another hotel, it was a lifestyle. A chance to escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life and truly relax in the beauty of the Colorado mountains. Word spread quickly. The town started buzzing about the transformation. And soon enough, visitors were booking reservations months in advance. Our opening was a success beyond my wildest expectations. But it wasn't just the guests who noticed. The people who had watched me struggle for years began to see me in a new light. And then came the competition. Mountain Pine Lodge, the family business that I had worked so hard to save, was falling apart. The cracks I had tried to repair were now wider than ever. Tom's leadership was a disaster. His decisions making the hotel less and less appealing. Reviews began to plummet, and the staff started leaving in droves. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash. But this time, I wasn't the one in the driver's seat. I heard whispers, locals speculating, guests comparing the two hotels. Some even pointed out how Mountain Pine had dropped their rates just to stay afloat. Meanwhile, the summit was growing stronger every day. Its success undeniable. It was everything I had envisioned and more. But even as the summit flourished, I couldn't escape the tension with my family. They didn't understand. They didn't see the amount of work I had put in to create something better. Something that wasn't built on favoritism and outdated ideals. They couldn't see past their loyalty to Tom. And that's when I realized, no matter how much success I found, no matter how many guests raved about our service, the approval I craved from them would never come. Still, I wasn't about to let their disapproval stop me. Every time I walked through the doors of the summit, I was reminded of what I had accomplished. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had built this from nothing. And it was thriving. The team I had assembled, the guests who trusted us, the local vendors who now wanted to work with us, it was all proof that I had made the right choice. The phone rang one morning, cutting through the quiet rhythm of the summit like a sharp blade. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew instantly who it was when I picked up. It was my mother. Her voice was softer than usual, strained with something I couldn't quite place. "We need to talk," she said, her words heavy with unspoken tension. "Your father and we've been talking. And we need your help." I felt the all too familiar knot form in my stomach. I already knew what was coming. Tom's hotel was failing, and now, once again, they were turning to me to fix it. But this time, it was different. They weren't just asking for advice. They were asking for me to step in. To save the family legacy. To help Tom figure it out. "I can't do that," I said, the words slipping out before I even thought them through. My voice was steady, but inside, my chest was tight. The decision was final, but the weight of it was not lost on me. "But Sophia, we're running out of time." My dad's voice crackled on the line. Desperate and worn. Tom's in over his head. "We need someone who understands the business. You've built something incredible at the summit. We know you can fix this." I sat there for a moment. The world outside the window of my office blurring into a haze. My mind flashed back to everything I had sacrificed for the family. Everything I had done to keep their dream alive. I had sold my life in Chicago. I had poured every ounce of energy I had into Mountain Pine Lodge. But it was never enough. They never saw me, never truly acknowledged the effort I put in. Now, they were asking me to go back and clean up Tom's mess. I felt my fingers tighten around the phone. "I offered to help years ago," I said, my voice firm, even though every part of me wanted to crumble. "I was the one who was willing to come back. But you chose Tom. You chose him, knowing he wasn't ready. And now, you want me to step in and fix everything? I can't do that." There was a long pause. And I could almost hear the weight of my parents' disappointment. The realization that their world was falling apart. It was their mistake, their decision, and yet they wanted me to make it right. But I had given everything. And I was done. "We just want the family business to succeed," my mom said, her voice trembling now. "You're our daughter, Sophia. We can't let it fail." I took a deep breath, my gaze drifting over the carefully arranged furnishings of my office. This was my space, my creation. I had built this from nothing. Just like I had built everything else. And I wasn't going to let my parents guilt me into giving it all up. "You had a chance to see what I could do," I said, my voice resolute. "And you chose to hand it all over to someone who couldn't even commit to a single job for more than a year. I can't help you now. I'm not going back." The silence on the other end of the line stretched, thick with the weight of unspoken words. My parents had never quite understood the depth of my commitment. The sacrifices I'd made. They had never seen me for what I truly was. Someone capable of leading. Someone who could create something lasting. Not just clean up their messes. "Well, I guess that's it then," my dad finally muttered, his voice low and weary. "You're turning your back on the family." "I'm not turning my back on anyone," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "I'm simply choosing to live my life on my own terms. You had your chance. Now you need to deal with the consequences of your decisions." I hung up the phone, my heart heavy but at peace. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of freedom. This wasn't about punishing my parents or proving them wrong. It was about standing up for myself. For what I had worked so hard to build. But the consequences of that conversation rippled through the town like a stone dropped into water. The whispers began almost immediately. I was the ungrateful daughter. The one who had turned her back on her family. The one who had let greed and ambition tear the bond apart. Some people from the old crowd, even some of my loyal customers from Mountain Pine, questioned my decision. They felt torn, like choosing sides meant choosing to break a family apart. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to care. I had already made my peace. The summit was mine. It was my dream, my vision, and it was thriving. I wasn't going to let the small town gossip or the disapproval of my parents shake me anymore. But the hardest part was yet to come. My success at the summit didn't go unnoticed. And the local press soon caught wind of it. An article in the town's newspaper, the one everyone read, featured me as the new star of Colorado's hospitality scene. But the final blow came when the article was published in a prestigious travel magazine. The headline: The Rise of the Summit, a New Vision for Luxury in the Rockies. The piece detailed my journey, my transformation of Riverside Lodge, and how I had created something extraordinary. But the magazine didn't stop there. It also featured a section on traditional hotels struggling to adapt to the modern world. With Mountain Pine Lodge as the primary example, the damage was done. My parents couldn't escape the truth anymore. I had done what they could never do. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I was the one who had the vision, the drive, and the heart to make it happen. The day of the awards ceremony arrived like a storm, full of anticipation and nerves. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just an event. It was the moment that would define everything I had worked for. The summit was finally being recognized on a scale I hadn't even dreamed of when I first started. I had poured my heart and soul into this place. And now it was being acknowledged. Not just by the local community, but by industry leaders and experts. And yet, as I walked into the ballroom, a part of me still felt unsettled. This wasn't just about winning an award. This was about something deeper. This was about the years of being overlooked. The countless times I had been told I wasn't enough. That my ideas weren't worthy of recognition. As I made my way to the front, the glittering lights of the ceremony reflecting off the polished floors, I couldn't help but glance toward the back of the room. There they were, my parents, sitting in the back, just like they had always done. Their faces unreadable. My father had his usual stern expression, while my mother's smile was tight, forced, as if she wasn't sure whether she should be proud or disappointed. The announcer's voice broke through my thoughts, calling out the nominees for Boutique Hotel of the Year. I felt my pulse quicken as they listed the competitors, the room buzzing with excitement. The summit had been nominated, and I knew this could be my moment to truly stand tall, not just in front of the industry but in front of my family. The ones who had never truly seen me. And then, the moment arrived, and the winner is the summit. The applause that followed felt like a dream. The room erupted into cheers, but all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. This wasn't just a win for the summit. It was a win for me. For everything I had built. For all the sacrifices I had made. I had proven to myself, and to the world, that I could do this. That I was enough. That my vision, my hard work, my dedication, everything I had fought for, had paid off. As I walked to the stage to accept the award, my thoughts briefly flashed back to that moment in the lobby when my parents had brushed me aside. When they had dismissed my efforts in favor of Tom's bigger picture. I could feel their eyes on me now. But this time, I didn't flinch. This time, I was standing in the spotlight. And no one could take that away from me. I took the microphone in my hand, my heart still racing, but a calmness settled over me. I looked out at the crowd, at the faces of the people who had supported me, the people who had believed in what I was doing. I could see the pride in their eyes, the quiet acknowledgement that this wasn't just a fluke. This was a real success. And then I spoke, my voice steady but full of emotion. I want to thank my amazing team, our incredible guests, and of course, my family. It's because of all of you that we've come this far. I paused for a moment, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. But I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the place where I first fell in love with hospitality, Mountain Pine Lodge. It was there that I learned the true value of service, of dedication, and of what it means to build something from nothing. I saw the uncomfortable shifting of my parents in their seats, their faces pale as they listened to the subtle message in my words. It wasn't an attack. It was a quiet reminder of the path I had walked, the sacrifices I had made, and how their decision to overlook me had ultimately led to the creation of something far greater than they could have imagined. The crowd's applause grew louder as I wrapped up my speech. And as I returned to my seat, the weight of the moment hit me. This wasn't just about an award. This was about my journey. About standing up for myself when no one else would. About building something real, something lasting. And for the first time, I felt like I had truly earned my place. That night, as I celebrated with my team, I knew that this victory wasn't just mine. It belonged to all of us, everyone who had believed in the summit, who had fought alongside me, and who had worked tirelessly to turn a vision into reality. My parents didn't approach me after the ceremony. They didn't need to. The look in their eyes told me everything I needed to know. But as I stood there, surrounded by people who had become my family, I realized something. This was my moment, not just because I had won an award, but because I had finally found peace. I had built something that was truly mine, and no one could take that from me. As the months passed, the summit continued to thrive. The hotel became a reflection of everything I had worked for, every ounce of energy I had poured into it. I walked through the lobby every morning, watching the guests arrive with smiles on their faces, the staff moving efficiently with warmth and professionalism. It felt like a dream, but it was real. I had created something lasting, something meaningful, and for the first time, I felt truly at peace. It wasn't just the hotel's success that mattered, it was the life I had built around it. The summit had become more than just a business. It had become a place of connection, a place where people came to recharge, to experience something authentic, something that reflected my values of quality, community, and dedication. The team I had brought together was incredible, and together, we had created an environment where everyone was valued, where every idea mattered. I had found my true family in the people who worked alongside me, who believed in what we were building, who saw the vision and helped make it a reality. And then, as I stood in the lobby one morning, watching the sunlight filter through the windows and illuminate the space I had designed, I realized just how far I had come. The summit was thriving, but it wasn't just the business that was thriving, it was me. I had finally shed the weight of my past, the weight of trying to live up to my family's expectations. I had stopped waiting for validation from them, from anyone. I had created something of my own, something that couldn't be taken away. For years, I had tried to prove myself to my parents, to show them that I was more than just the daughter they thought they knew. But now, I understood. The validation I had been searching for was never going to come from them. It was never going to come from anyone else. It had to come from within. And for the first time in my life, I was proud of what I had done, proud of who I had become. The summit was a legacy, not just a business, but a testament to my resilience, my determination, and my refusal to settle for anything less than what I knew I was capable of. It wasn't about proving anyone wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I was worthy of success, that I could build something from the ground up and make it thrive. Looking back, I could see how everything had come full circle. The Mountain Pine Lodge, my family's legacy, was still struggling. It wasn't because of me. It was because they hadn't been willing to see what I could bring to the table. They hadn't been willing to let me lead. And that had been their mistake. But now, I had my own legacy. One that would endure. One that would stand the test of time. As I walked through the hotel, watching the guests laugh, the staff work with pride, I knew this was exactly what I had dreamed of all those years ago. The summit was my creation, my vision, and it was everything I had ever wanted in a hotel, and more. It was a space where people felt welcome, where they could find peace, and where they could experience something authentic. And for the first time, I realized that I had finally built the place I had always wanted to be a part of. My journey had been long, and there had been moments of doubt, of pain, of feeling overlooked and undervalued. But it was those very moments that had shaped me, that had made me who I was today. I had learned to trust myself, to believe in my own vision, and to stop waiting for permission to succeed. I had learned that success wasn't about meeting other people's expectations, it was about meeting my own. The summit wasn't just a hotel. It was a symbol of everything I had overcome, everything I had fought for. And as I stood there, watching the sun rise over the mountains, I knew that this was just the beginning. My story wasn't over. It was only getting started. And the best part? I was finally living it on my own terms.